Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Some connections are better left in the past. When a long-lost family suddenly wants back in, is it ever truly about love? Today in the rLounge, it's about who shows up, who stays, and who truly cares. Bioparents who abandoned me as infant want to reconcile because my adoptive mom is rich. I cut them off. I, 25 male, was abandoned before I even had a chance to understand the world. My bioparents put me up for adoption as soon as I was born, or maybe before I came into this world. They were barely out of their teenage years when they had me. I was nothing more than an ugly consequence of their reckless choices. Instead of making sacrifices, they took the easy way out and gave me away. My adoptive parents, whom I consider my real mom and dad, adopted me when I was 2 months old and raised me with all the love and care in the world. I'm fortunate. They weren't very wealthy back then, but made decent. They gave me everything they could. My mom was a school teacher and child counselor, and my dad was an office executive. They both worked tirelessly to provide for me. They taught me the value of education and hard work. My mom would stay up late helping with school projects, and my dad spent his weekends teaching me how to fix things around the house. Despite our modest means, they made sure I never felt left out. They saved up to send me to a good private school, even if it meant cutting back on some luxuries for themselves. When I turned 16, Dad surprised me with a used car he had spent months fixing up. It wasn't brand new, but it was mine, and it meant everything. They cheered me on at every milestone, from my first soccer game to college graduation. My parents made me feel like I belonged, like I was wanted, and never once did they make me feel like a burden. I never felt they were not my real parents. In fact, I got to know that I was adopted only when I was 13, and they thought I should know my past. They asked me if I wanted to meet my parents, and they would help me get in touch. I questioned whether my parents had reached out wanting to meet me. They said no. I replied that then it was settled. If they don't want me, why should I bother them? I didn't know I had real parents out there, but they knew they had a son living next town. I moved out for college, and since then have been living on my own. However, I ensure to visit my parents every few months and remain connected to my mom over calls and texts. I make decent money thanks to my strong academics. I graduated from one of the reputed colleges. I never gave my biological parents a second thought, not until a few months ago that my past suddenly caught up to me. I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I answered it, and a woman from the other end called my birth name in a hesitant and shaky voice. I immediately understood that she was someone from my past because this name had been completely erased from my life. My parents told me that it was my birth name, which they had changed later. The woman introduced herself to be Mandy, my bio mom. For a moment, my mind blanked. My mother? The woman who had vanished from my life before I could even form memories? I had no idea how to react, so I mumbled something about being busy and hung up. For the next few days, I kept thinking about that call. A part of me wanted to call back and check what she had to say, but a part didn't want to dig into the past. Before I could even process the shock, another call came a week later. This time it was from my bio dad, Paul. As soon as I answered the call, he introduced himself and said he wanted to meet me. Again, I was unprepared and speechless. I stammered, saying I wasn't sure if I wanted to meet him and needed some time to decide. He said, "I miss you, son. I want to be part of your life. Can we meet once, and then you can decide whether you want to keep in touch?" I said I'm busy right now and will get back when I'm free. He texted me twice after, asking if I made up my mind and then requesting one meeting. Honestly, I don't know how to feel about the whole stuff. It's just too overwhelming. I do not want to meet them and find out why they never checked in on me until now. I want to know my roots. I don't know if Mandy and Paul are even married or in touch. If not, then how come they both contacted me within a week? And why did they contact me now, after so many years? Want to know all the answers, but I'm scared and awkward to face them. Has anyone been through this? Any advice or tips I should keep in mind? You're right to be skeptical, OP. The timing is weird. The sudden urgency is suspect, and that whole "I miss you, son" line? Sir, you have to have been in someone's life to miss them. Update 1. I met my bio parents, not because I was longing for them or something, was just curious. However, a part of me was afraid of going that lane. I discussed it with my mom. She's an empath. She acknowledged my dilemma and encouraged me to hear them out. She kind of mentally prepared me. Just go and let the conversation happen by the flow without any pressure. So, I went without any expectations. Mandy and Paul came together, and I figured out they were married. I felt nothing when I saw them. No connection, no emotional outburst, nothing. Just two strangers who happened to share my DNA. They looked tired and way beyond their age. Mandy lacked that motherly vibe that I get from my mom. Paul had the kind of weathered look that came from years of struggle. I started with an awkward hug. Mandy shed tears, held my hand, and asked how I was doing. I just nodded and sat there unmoved. After a few minutes of awkward silence, Mandy kicked off the story. We weren't ready. We were young, unmarried people. We didn't have a job, nor any means to raise you. Giving off for adoption was the only option left for us. So glad to see how it played out to be the best thing for you. Right, Paul? She said this as if to give him a cue to take over the talk. He chipped in. Obviously, look at you. So well-educated, well-groomed, taking care of yourself so well. This was the best for you. They spoke as if they were the ones who had done me a favor. Mandy squeezed my hand as if expecting sympathy inside. We did what was best for you. Don't be mad at us. We love you and miss you every single day. You can't imagine the pain of a mother who had to separate from her little one. She was sobbing, holding my hands. I asked her if they really missed me. Why didn't they ever check on me or try to contact me? They had no answer except sobbing. All their arguments circled back to the same self-praising mode that their decision turned out to be so amazing to me, and I was leading such a fantastic life. I subtly replied, I could have ended up in an abusive household, or God knows somewhere more terrible. So don't you think it was my luck that I got such good adoptive parents? Paul jumped in saying, We did all the checks before giving you off. We wouldn't have given you to any troubled people. We found a loving and caring home for you. We did our part to give a better life to you. Their tone gave me a sense of pride and accomplishment that it was them who gave me a good life. Mandy informed me I had two siblings, Tom, 22 male, and Lisa, 19 female. Tom had moved out, put up in a different city while Lisa was living with them. She asked if I wanted to meet them. I said okay. I hurriedly left after that to avoid any plans of meeting them. Since then, Mandy has texted me twice to check on me, but whenever I see her text, I feel heavy and discomfort. I don't want to talk or have anything to do with them. Am I judging them too soon? I was discussing this with my girlfriend, and she said maybe I was comparing them to my parents, who are more refined and sophisticated, who knows how to express themselves in a good way and love me selflessly. Maybe I was brought up in a different manner, hence I thought Mandy and Paul to be weird. I don't know. I didn't get a good vibe. The warmth was superficial. I felt they didn't come back for the sake of love, but to validate their choices. Update 2. I now understand the world I came from, and I cannot be more thankful about being adopted. So after the first meeting, Mandy texted me several times, wanting to meet next. I let it slide until Paul called and invited me to Mandy's birthday. I said I wasn't sure if I could make it because of my work. He insisted I come for Mandy's sake, and in that way, I would be able to meet my siblings. Initially, I didn't want to go. Then curiosity got the better of me, and I showed up. When I arrived, I was taken aback. Their apartment was in a run-down building in a narrow and dark alley. The air stank of dampness. The paint on the walls was peeling. It was even worse inside. The apartment was small, cluttered, and damped. The lights were on. Still took me a few minutes to adjust my eyes to the dimness. There was a battered couch against the living room wall, covered in mismatched cover. The kitchen was tiny, and dishes stacked in the sink, an old fridge that hummed so loudly that I could hear it from the living room. Lisa greeted me awkwardly. She looked embarrassed, almost ashamed of the state they lived in. She tried to remove the scattered stuff, pulled aside the curtain, and switched all the lights on to make the living room look better. They all tried to make me comfortable, offering drinks and snacks. I went there thinking there would be some sort of celebration, but there was none. I asked them what's the plan, to which Paul said they don't celebrate it as such. Mandy just wanted to meet me on her birthday. It was heartwarming. I actually felt blessed they gave me off. I was able to understand their perspective. Mandy had cooked for me and I did feel special. While eating, all three of them tried to keep the conversation interesting, asking me about my life. It felt good, but somehow not home. That sense of familiarity was missing, but I realized they were not bad people. Instead, trapped in bad circumstances. I was raised in a sophisticated family, hence I expected the same level of manners from Mandy and Paul during the first meet, but after visiting them, I figured out they have a different world. I left that night feeling sorry for them and a huge load of sympathy for their struggle. I didn't say it out loud, but I wanted to thank them for setting me up for adoption. My life wouldn't have been the same if they raised me. I got some soft corners for them. If their presence in your life feels like a burden rather than a meaningful connection, you have every right to set boundaries. At the end of the day, your journey is about your well-being, not their validation. Update 3. I'm feeling manipulated. I don't know. So I visited Mandy a couple of times more. They made me feel so special, respected me a lot, and I kind of get a sense of obligation to help them out. I don't know how I got it. Maybe the realization that I was in a better position in life out of sheer luck and their good judgment about my adoptive parents. Their poor condition hurt me, so I took gifts for them on my next visit. Nothing fancy, just some dresses for Lisa, an IKEA gift card for Mandy so that she could get whatever she wanted, and a small check for Paul. I don't know if that's my mistake, because since then, I think they feel entitled to handouts. The first time it happened was when I got a call from Mandy towards the end of the month. After some small talk, she hesitantly asked if I could spare a few bucks as they were running short of grocery supplies. I was speechless for a moment. I mean, what should I say in such a situation? I got awkward and stammered sure and immediately sent her the money. I felt so sorry for them that they couldn't afford their basic needs. Then a month later, Paul called, panting, "Son, we're behind on a few months' rent. Could you wire some money? Just a small loan. I swear I'll pay you back." Before I could say anything, he started pleading that he really needed it. That's why he was asking and swore to return once his paycheck hit. Hesitantly, I wired in, unsure if I'd get it back. Nonetheless, he paid me half of it next month and promised to return the remaining in a few months. I was relieved that at least he's trying. A few weeks later, Mandy called me in a panic, saying the roof was leaking and it was snowy. I was in two minds, but then she sent me pictures of the bedroom where it was leaking and the cold water was seeping in. I felt terrible and helped her out. Then Paul messaged me, saying their heater had stopped working in the middle of winter. Another payment. I don't mind much for smaller requests like groceries or car breakdowns or electricity bills were overdue, but now the demand is increasing. They have started asking for money more regularly, each excuse growing thinner. Like recently, Lisa called me sobbing. She needed tuition money for her college as she was laid off from her part-time job. I almost said no, but she guilt-tripped me saying, "I hope you would understand the importance of education. It's the only thing that can help us out of this poverty." Helplessly, I had to pitch in. Now, as you can understand, I have started feeling manipulated and used. Do you guys think I should keep bailing them out just because I can? I've also started feeling they wanted me back in their life just for the money. But then I have been earning for the last 3 years. If it was just money, they would have contacted me earlier. My problem is, I don't know how to deal with such requests. Have never been in such a situation before. Update 4. You won't believe what happened. Like I mentioned, I was feeling used and someone suggested I withhold the payment or refuse to lend the next time and see their reaction. It will uncover their real motive, and it did. So the next time Paul called telling me that he had accumulated a few months of car mortgage and now the bank was chasing him, I said I didn't have the money right now. He was shocked at my response, as if no wasn't an option. He got quiet for a moment and then pleaded to bail him out. I gathered all my strength and said I was busy right now and could not help him this time. 2 weeks passed and I heard nothing from them. I patted myself that it wasn't too hard, right? Wrong. You should never celebrate too early. Mandy called me wanting to see me. She informed me that they were visiting the town for some work purposes and checked if we could meet. I said sure. They wanted to see my place, so I invited them over. I didn't think it would be a big deal. After their initial small talk, Mandy started the rant about their miserable life and how they were struggling to put things together. I zoned out after a while and mindlessly nodded. Then she said something along the lines of, "We were thinking maybe you could send us something monthly." I immediately got alerted. I stopped her. "Wait, what?" Paul repeated her words in a less pleading and more expectant tone. "Seeing our circumstances, we're hoping you spare a few grand on us monthly." Their entitlement made me crack up. I replied, "I don't make as much as you think. Just been a few years into the job. I have no savings and a whole life in front of me." To this, Mandy nonchalantly whispered, "But you've gotten such a huge inheritance." I was puzzled. "What inheritance?" Paul replied, "We know your mother had inherited her parents' wealth, and I'm sure you would get a share in it too. You're her only son after all." I laughed so hard at this. I mean, yes, my mother did inherit her dad's estate, but it was a couple of $1 million and not a big deal for them. I mean, my parents are quite well off on their own. The investments they made in their 20s and 30s were paying off well, but they're not stocking it up. They both travel the world, living their retirement life blissfully. I'm sure she would want to use the inheritance for herself, or maybe give it away for charity. She's associated with a lot of NGOs. Mandy and Paul couldn't believe I wasn't interested in my mother's wealth. They looked at me as if I was speaking some alien language. On hearing about the charity, they were astonished as to how could someone give off their own money to strangers. I replied sarcastically, "You won't get it. You've never done anything for others, right? You won't understand the feeling." Mandy quickly jumped back into the topic, saying, "Well, you can consider this to be a charity, right? We're also needy. If you don't want her money, fine. You can get some for us." Paul jumped in and said, "Yeah, $20,000 would be sufficient for us, or maybe $25,000. Yeah, that would be enough." I was so shocked at their greed that I almost blacked out. They pleaded, "Oh, come on. The money wouldn't even make a dent for them, but it would transform our lives. We've always struggled. Won't you want your parents to live a comfortable life, at least in their old age?" I smiled and asked, "My parents are already living a good life. Whom are you talking about?" Paul was like, "I don't know what grudge you're holding for us. You got this life because of us. If we didn't give you away, you would have ended up like your siblings. Instead of being thankful, you're throwing weight." I clarified I can't be a jerk as they want me to be. I consider my adoptive parents to be my real ones. They raised me so well and made me independent, which is enough for me. I don't want anything else. Mandy shed her fake tears and guilt-tripped me that, as a son, I should think about their well-being. Paul was like, "Yeah, we secured your future. It's time for you to do it for us." I snapped at him. "I did what I could. Helped you whenever you asked, but your demands don't seem to end, and now you're asking me to go beyond my morals and beg for your sake. I'm not going to do that. And yes, I share your DNA, but I'm glad I'm not one of you." Out of curiosity, I asked them how they knew about my mother's inheritance. So Mandy worked at a restaurant for the last 30 years. The owner of that place was friends with my mother. Actually, that's how my parents ended up adopting me. They were looking to adopt a child, and Mandy had told her boss, the cafe's owner, that they had set me up for adoption. That's how it happened. That same friend blurted out in front of Mandy that my mother had inherited a huge wealth, and now I was rich. I was dumbstruck to know this. So Mandy and Paul always had updates about me. They knew what I was doing. I mean, it wasn't difficult for them to keep a tab on me, yet they took 25 years to contact me. It was clear. They didn't want me. They wanted the money, and I was their golden goose. I felt sick of their presence. I asked them to excuse me as I had to go out. They left shortly, pleading with me to think about them once. I just nodded. These people who had abandoned me without a second thought now believed they were entitled to my help. A few days later, when Mandy texted to remind me about the money, I said my decision was still no. I cannot opt for a monthly allowance or $25,000. She gasped. "This is what you have to say after everything we've done for you?" Everything they've done for me? They had done nothing. Nothing except give me away and come back when they thought I was useful to them. That was it. I told them firmly that I didn't want to be in touch with them, so they should stop contacting me. They both sent me voicemails crying and begging me not to cut them off. If this was not all, Lisa sent me a long text about how I was turning my back on family. I blocked their numbers. Mandy tried calling from different ones, but I hung up as soon as I got to know it was her. They tried to guilt-trip me that I was being cruel to my Bioparents, but I felt no guilt. My real parents were the ones who raised me, who made sacrifices for me, who loved me selflessly. Mandy and Paul didn't abandon me because they had to. They abandoned me because it was convenient. And now they were back because they thought it was convenient again. But this time, I was the one making the decision. And I chose to leave them behind, just like they had left me. The way they reacted when you said no was the biggest confirmation of their true intentions. A real family wouldn't guilt-trip you, lie about their motivations, or try to manipulate you into handing over money. They would respect your boundaries, appreciate what you've already done, and want a relationship with you for you, not your bank account. You made the right choice, OP. Cutting ties was absolutely the right call. Have you experienced something similar? Tell us your stories in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time. And please put your chair back where you found it.